What is up, folks? Welcome to Baking with Noah. Today we are going to make French toast from scratch, homemade, all the way. Yes, that includes making the bread as well. So let's get started. For the ingredients, we have our yeast, we have sugar, salt, and butter, as well as warm water divided for reasons. And finally, our flour, preferably bread flour, but hey, all flour works. And last but not least, we have our stand mixer, which is just going to save us some work. Instead of doing it by hand, we have this machine to do it for us. So let's get started with the smaller increment of the warm water and the yeast. This is just to get it kick-started, get it blooming. This is both preparing the yeast for what is to come and also double checking that the yeast is in fact active. Moving on, we are going to add the rest of our warm water, the rest of our sugar, salt, and finally the butter. These are all the ingredients all at once. Super simple. Finally, we're moving on to adding our flour, preferably bread flour once again. We're going to add about half of it to start and slowly add in the second half. This is just so we can keep an eye on how sticky our dough is, because really we're going for a texture more than amounts. And there are a lot of factors that go into this, such as the temperature of the room that you're doing this in and the time of year and the humidity in the air and whatnot. But you're gonna watch this and you want it to get sticky, but not super sticky, so some would call it tacky. As you can see here, it's forming one big ball and mixing quite well. So now we're going to move this over to a well-oiled bowl after rolling it around and making it nice and pretty. Now it's going to sit in here for about an hour, maybe 45 minutes if you're in a warmer room, and this is going to do its first rise. Now we're going to take it out and we'll slap it on a lightly floured surface. And this is just to get the big air pockets out of it. We don't want to get the air out of it, but we want to kind of crush those larger air pockets. So I'm going to roll this up and throw it into our lightly greased loaf pan. Now I will admit that this is a small loaf pan, so it makes kind of irregularly shaped bread. So we're doing another 30 minutes in this loaf pan, proofing once more, before we cover it in a little bit of melted butter, preferably unsalted, but salted works too. It'll just make a really salty crust. Once that is done, we're going to move this on to the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, this is going to sit in here for about 30 minutes, give or take 5 minutes, but usually giving. So, as you can see, it rises quite a bit out of the small loaf pan, but that's going to be perfect for our French toast, a lot of surface area. Now we're going to let it cool for about 5 minutes before taking it out of the pan, and of course, covering it in melted butter one more time. Now we're going to roll that out and let it sit for, well, a couple hours for sure. Later, we are going to cut 2 thick slices out of the bread loaf. Now, these we're going to leave overnight so that it can go stale, and this is going to allow it to absorb more custard in the morning. And speaking of which, here we are. Welcome to the second part of the video. So our ingredients this time are vanilla extract, eggs, cinnamon, and sugar with a little bit of salt in there. And of course some milk. Now we are going to get a tray to baste these in and add all of our ingredients in. Finally, just a splash of milk to start. And this is going to get us whisking. So really, really important with your custard that you whisk a lot. You want this to be one homogeneous custard. Then we can finally dip our bread in it. And because it's a stale, thick loaf, it's actually going to take several minutes on either side, rotating between the two to get them really, really fully saturated with that custard. Now with our pan ready and hot and with butter in it, we are going to drop them in one at a time, let them cook decently enough on either side until very browned. And then once that's done, you know what time it is. time to eat some French toast. Let's go. One little pat of butter and a little bit of icing sugar. Some maple syrup to top it all off. And it's looking like it's time to eat. All right, let's give this a shot. There's a slice. And down the hatch. Wow, fantastic. French toast is good. Homemade bread is good. Homemade French toast, fantastic.